Greetings to you. My name is Tara Brabazon and I'm the Dean of Graduate Research at Flinders University. Welcome to vlog 277, the oral exam. This vlog comes via request from Eleanor, the wonderful Eleanor in Paris. It's been lovely to get to know you the last couple of years, Eleanor, and it is without a doubt the most popular request I have received. Thousands of requests have emerged from around the world for this particular vlog. And while I was actually finishing up the drafting of the writing of this vlog, the wonderful cat, Queen Cat, my BFF on Twitter, asked me if I would do a vlog on the oral exam. So for Eleanor and for Queen Cat, this is for you. Now, you may be asking, young Skywalker, why it's taken thousands of requests, and indeed we've reached vlog 277 before I've actually delivered this vlog. You know, I try and always be responsive and deliver the vlogs that you ask of me. So why are we at 277 for what is probably the most popular request I receive? There is a reason. I currently live and I currently work in Australia. This accent is not put on. And the challenge with living in Australia in the doctoral space is only one third of Australian universities have an oral exam at the conclusion of their doctoral and research master's candidature. Now, for the rest of the world, oral examinations are normal, they're part of the deal. So I probably had to get to vlog 277 to be able to justify this vlog for my Flinders crew. We do not have an oral exam at Flinders, and also for the crew in the rest of Australia. And now is the time for this moment. You know, do international examiners question why we do not have an oral exam in Australia? As someone who reads thousands of examiner reports, yes they do. I receive a report on a daily basis where an examiner says, and why is there no oral exam again? Well, let me provide that answer and explain the Australian specificity here. Look, in Australia it is a profound weakness that our higher degree programs do not have an oral exam. It is a profound weakness. But there is a great strength that the tyranny of distance, if I cite Geoffrey Blaney, because someone has to, there is a gift that the tyranny of distance has given Australian universities, for which I am incredibly proud. And, you know, I throw Australian universities under the bus for a lot of reasons, but I'm incredibly proud for a few of the decisions that we made in doctoral education. And you see, the challenge we have in Australia is that our capital cities are all a very, very long way away from each other. So what options did we have before digitisation for the examining of our doctorates, examining of our students? We've got a small country, a small number of people, and a big distance between the capital cities. So you can work out the problem is here. This is not like getting on a train from Manchester to London. This is not like getting on a train from Leeds to Glasgow. So the decision was made for Australian quality assurance to internationalise our examinations. So therefore what happens is supervisors, advisors, select the 2 or 3 best scholars in the world. And the thesis is sent to those examiners and they examine it. They examine the script. No oral exam, but you would argue a powerful international assessment for our students. So you may have picked up, there are no internal examiners in the Australian doctoral system. The examiners do not converse, so our external examiners do not converse. They are completely independent of one another and must develop and initiate and present an independent result, which is then independently assessed against others. So while I can be incredibly critical of the Australian higher education system and indeed the doctoral program, the bit that makes me incredibly proud as someone who's worked around the world, it makes me incredibly proud, is that our students every time are assessed by the best scholars in the world. We've internationalised the doctorate. So we have got the best scholars assessing our students, not someone who is within a convenient train ride of the university. Okay, now you could argue with synchronous digitisation, so Skype or Zoom or Collaborate or Teams, any of those variables, there now is no reason, none, why an oral examination cannot be conducted with the best examiners in the world for our Australian system. But for my colleagues around the world who are watching this, hi to everyone in Singapore, in Finland, in Canada, in the United Kingdom, considering these synchronous digital platforms, why do you still have internal examiners when you can be examined by the best scholars in the world rather than the best scholars in your nation? Just something to think about. So I think COVID has shown to us how easy it is to examine around the world. Now, I've always examined around the world. I've always been brought in via Skype. I think I did one of the earliest Skype oral examinations in the United Kingdom. Hi to everyone in Crewe at the MMU campus. But this year, through COVID, has naturalised this process of people screening into meetings. And universities around the world are starting to see the value of using international examiners. Now, this is proper internationalisation. Now, I'm aware a lot of people would see me as naive, as sort of some freeloading hippie. Can you imagine? Freeloading hippie that's going internationalisation, man. But I am offering a meta-critique of how we are conducting oral examinations around the world. So, for example, a lot of universities have replicated the British model for oral examinations, which I know incredibly well, with an internal examiner and an external examiner. Now, the North American model, also very interesting, a suite of examiners, but with the preponderance of internal examiners over the number of external examiners. And in some systems, there is an external examiner with an internal panel. Now, of course, everybody's favourite doctoral system, and we all wonder why we didn't graduate from there, is of course the Finnish system. Respect to all the Finnish crew out there. Now, the Finnish doctoral program is truly fascinating. I've been involved as an examiner a few times in the Finnish system, and it is remarkable because it's this intricate dance between internal and external examiners with a series of processes. So we move through internal processes in the university until everybody agrees that the thesis is passable, the thesis is of quality. And at that point where everyone's agreed it passes, it then moves to a public oral examination process that of course is more of a ceremonial celebration for the quality of the thesis. So that is the national and the international context for our work. And look, that might not be hugely relevant if you're about to participate in an oral exam now and you're saying, Tara, help me, I need tips right now. And I'm going to give you the tips right now. But I did want all of you to have a sense of this international system that we are part of, and know that as students, as supervisors, as examiners, these systems are changing. We are creating a properly international doctoral program with quality assurance, with movement, and with intellectual generosity. So, Australia, hi. Time to get with the rest of the world, team. It's time. It is time for the oral examination. So this vlog is preparing you for the oral examination. Now, I know many students who are watching this, you won't be doing an oral exam. I get that. But will there be an oral exam throughout Australia in 5 years? Yeah. Will there be an oral exam in Australia proliferating throughout the systems within 2? Probably. So this means even if as a student you haven't experienced an oral exam, you will have to do one as a supervisor and you will have to do one as an examiner. So I'm preparing you for our future together. Okay, so the oral examination vlog series is split into 3. Yes, it's a trilogy. It is the Jedi trilogy. This week I'm going to just present for everyone desperate about to go into an oral exam, and there are a lot of you, the key strategies to make you comfortable so that you will pass. And I've prepared thousands of scholars around the world to go into and relax and enjoy and be comfortable and confident in an oral exam. So we're going to do that work for you today. Next week, I'm going to take off my Dean hat and I'm going to become your oral examiner. And I'm going to conduct a mock oral exam with you with questions. And there's a very, very special end to the trilogy, I think. We organised it yesterday, so a very special something and someone will be involved concluding this trilogy. I'm excited. Okay, so I will be structuring the vlog next week as sort of a series of questions. So I've got a series of questions that are in banks of topics, okay? So this week, I am setting you up to do our exam next week. I'm presenting really practical advice. This is really practical stuff that you can implement quickly and will change your life. If you do what I'm doing today, you will pass it. There will not be a problem. And what I'm trying to do is make your oral exam manageable, organised, clear, and yes, comfortable, allowing you to sit and be comfortable in what is an incredibly stressful situation. So let's do it. 10 things to do. Let's talk about it. Point 1. Know that the examiners want you to succeed. The nature of an oral exam, sadly, and too often, is configured as adversarial, like a war. They are out to get you. It's like almost sort of a Game of Thrones style conquest. And that's not the case. It's really not a Lannister style affair. All examiners come to the examination knowing that it's a really tough gig, that this is challenging to do. We know that. So you don't have to be King of the North to pass. So what we try and do, knowing the stress, is we try and relax you. Now, what you've got to grasp is we as examiners have responsibilities to the university. We also have responsibilities to knowledge. Hashtag no pressure. And we have to discharge those responsibilities, but we discharge them with a duty of care about you. So because some of the behaviours that have emerged in some international oral examination systems have been weird and not ideal, and trust me, I have been in some shockers where an examiner had a brain explosion and just freaked out. I have seen that, but what's happened to avoid that type of sort of rogue bull behaviour is in many systems, it's still not most, but in many systems, we now have an independent chair, which I strongly recommend. So this chair is there for governance and quality assurance protocols. They're there to log what happens during the oral exam. So if anything weird happens, if someone does a freak out, then they can log, all right, well, examiner 2 at 2:10 p.m, started to talk about his mother. Right, so things happen. So that's a logging, and so that independent chair, if there's an independent chair, that's a great system, and that chair is there to protect and look after you, okay? But if you have experienced examiners, one often acts as a chair, and we have that duty of care around you, so things probably won't go weird. 99% of the time, they don't go weird, promise. So our job is to simply give you the opportunity to show how brilliant you are, how great your research is, and that's our job. But our job as an examiner is also to uphold international standards. So always remember, and I don't think this is explained enough to students, when we get your thesis, we write a written report. So we take the thesis and we write a written report, and that written report is submitted to the university before the oral exam is even considered. So we've already logged how great the research is, what's going well, perhaps the area of challenges, your original contribution to knowledge, your academic protocols. So a report has already gone in. So we've read the thesis thoroughly. We know you've worked hard. The oral examination, therefore, builds off that written report. and addresses some final interesting issues examiners may have. They may talk to you about methodology, they may question your interpretation of a particular finding, they may be interested in your commentary about a particular theorist. So any doubts or worries that you have, you can just actually speak through them. So if an examiner asks you a question, why did you do that? Answer them honestly. Explain why you did it. But know that the examiners really understand how tough this situation is. We have responsibilities, but we come to this situation with a duty of care to you. 2, important one, declare any health concerns or matters that may impact on your oral exam, declare those to the graduate office. Okay, this is important obviously if you have an impairment or a disability, but also if there is a sickness matter. It is important that you declare it. And what the declaration allows us to do is it allows examiners to configure modifications to enable your performance. So log the variables with the graduate office, whatever your graduate office is around the world. And what then happens is the graduate office then briefs the independent chair and the examiners. So these modifications are not reducing the standards of an oral exam. Once more, as you've heard me say hundreds of times, we can uphold standards without standardization. So we configure modifications. So let me give you a recent example of this. I was examining a British student a couple of months ago, and the graduate office briefed me as the external that the student had just returned from breast cancer treatment. Now, in the old days, in fact 15 years ago, when I was living in the United Kingdom, chair in the United Kingdom, I examined another student who had returned from breast cancer, but it was a different situation. What happened in that event 15 years ago is the supervisor took me aside. I remember it as if it was yesterday. Took me aside, said, Tara, and had a quiet chat with me under a stairwell and said, look, the student's not well, just returned from breast cancer. She's all right, but I'm not sure how she's going to manage the oral exam. I just wanted you to know. So the supervisor briefed the external examiner. But our new systems, I would argue, are much better systems. Students declare something about the management of their capacity, and it might involve the capacity to do particular tasks in an oral examination. And that's great. Declare it. It's transparent. It's efficient to declare those matters in this way. And really experienced examiners can then take that on board and guide you through the process. So the case of a student a couple of months ago that was returning from cancer treatment, we ran the examination in 30-minute blocks. So we ran a 30-minute block, and then, to quote the English parlance, we had a 5-minute comfort break. Love me a comfort break. So 30 minutes comfort break. We had 3 blocks of 30 minutes. The examiners made sure that it was a very tight exam so that we could compress it to certainly 90 minutes, and we did that. And the student did incredibly well, passed without correction. So you've got your head in the right place, right? Your examiners are not out to get you, crucial. And we've organised the examination if you require modifications in some way. And do ask for the changes. If there's something that is worrying, is an issue, don't be embarrassed. Declare the matter, and experienced examiners, because we have a duty of care for you, will reconfigure the structure. Standards without standardisation. So, okay, there's the first 2 caveats. We've got the framework in place. Let's now get real. How do we get great results for you? Let's do it. 3. Again, I'm amazed no one ever tells students this. The primary responsibility of the examiners is to confirm research integrity and academic integrity. The reason an oral exam exists, the primary reason, is to confirm that the work that you're saying is your work is actually your work. The oral exam asks you questions about your research, about your thesis, to prove that you have conducted the research and that you have written the research. Now, most oral examinations have between 10 and 20 questions. It's very rare that it would get above 20 questions, very rare it would get below 10. So 10 to 20 questions is really the sweet spot. And oral exams last about 90 minutes. Again, 90 minutes is the most common. It can go up to 3 hours. I've been in one that was 5 hours. That's a whole other story. Don't worry, that very rarely happens. They're invariably about 90 minutes, can creep up to 2 hours. But of those 10 to 20 questions that you will be asked, one of them will be granular. And let me explain what that means. So one question will be, so Elaine, on page 220, you made this statement about your data set. Or on page 290, you offered this interpretation of this finding. Can you explain to us how you reached that interpretation? Now, what you need to do, we'll talk about how you prepare your thesis in a second. You've brought the thesis in. Now you need to go to page 270 and read the passage. Make sure, talk with the examiner, is this the passage you're talking about? Be clear what you're talking about. And then take a breath and then work out why you did make that judgment or that interpretation or that decision. And answer that question honestly. So you will have at least one question that is a direct, granular test on your work. And that will include, by the way, if you've put articles in your thesis. Don't think for one moment, and again, this is a really important truth here, don't think for one moment that examiners won't discuss and test work because it's been refereed. Actually, I've seen examiners much more focused on the supposedly refereed work than the unrefereed work. To quote a great Yorkshireman examiner that I was in an exam 18 months ago as the independent chair, it was a nano exam. And this wonderful Yorkshireman said, quote, "Right, we're at chapter 5. This was your article. Now, let's talk about how I disagree with your journal referees." End of quote. So classic Yorkshireman, right? Can I say the student went very, very pale. So classic Yorkshireman stuff here. But he was making the point that I've said to you thousands of times, refereeing is not examining. They are different entities. And if you have placed co-authored publications in the thesis, and let's be honest, a whole series of disciplines in our universities do that. So if you have co-authored publications in your thesis, you will be questioned on your role in that article, because that is a research integrity test. Did you do the work that you said you did? And the oral exam exists to confirm that you did that. Now, we have to ensure that you have completed the work that you've stated that you've done. Remember, you've signed the declaration. It is my work. We have to test that. Now, I'm aware, and of course examiners are always aware, in interdisciplinary areas, you're not going to be as strong in some areas as other disciplines. We know that. And of course, nano is the great example of that. Legal studies is probably the example on the humanities side. Cultural studies obviously as well. But say nano, right? And say you've come into nano through physics. Then we all know that your chemistry expertise is going to be of a lesser stage. Now, examiners know that, but you will get asked some questions about chemistry, just to make sure you know enough to have made the argument that you've made in your nano thesis. So answer these granular questions the best you can. And I'll give you some suggestions about how to manage these. But expect a question that will check a small detail of a thesis. But also the weird thing is you'll also get a question that tests your wider disciplinary expertise. So you will get questions that check what are pretty basic and fundamental ideas in science, in methodology, how you've organised your literature review, how you've configured your systematic review. So these questions actually are proxies. They all exist, not so much to ask the question about what they're asking, but they exist as proxies to confirm that you conducted the research, and you have written up that research. 4, here we go. Read your thesis. Don't overread your thesis. The big question is, how do you prepare the thesis and your relationship with it for the big event? Now, I do see students arrive, and thankfully I've put a lot of public material out there about how to prepare for an oral exam, so we're seeing this a lot less. But 15, 20 years ago, we'd see a student arrive with this thesis that sort of had its own weight doubled by the post-it notes, right? So there'd be just post-it notes all over the place, highlighted pieces of paper. I mean, it would arrive like this sort of crazy 1950s cookbook that had moved through the generations. It was an absolute mess. Highlighter pens, scrawls. Now, don't do this. Really, do not do this. It shows to the examiner you're underconfident, you're worried. What's going on here? That again, you're worried about what's going to happen. Relax. Absolutely take the thesis into the oral exam. Now, make sure it's the thesis that was presented to the examiners. That's crucial. Not reformatting or whatever. Make sure it's the version that was given to the examiners, because they will ask you on page 270. So the 270s must match, okay? And also I would bring in paper. I would bring in a paper copy of your thesis. I wouldn't have it bound. I would have it loose leaf. Do not rely on an iPad or a computer or a PDF. This is one of the most important moments of your life. Use paper. So you have the thesis, you have the wad of paper. Okay, how do you prepare that wad of paper? Now, what I would do is I would read your thesis. Don't overread your thesis. You're reading it now in a different way. You're reading it to make sure you've got a grasp of the shape of the document and the bigger points, what you were trying to do, what you were trying to say, how you've contributed to knowledge. Now, you know what's in that. You wrote it. Be confident. So don't be stricken with worry about what you could have included, the gonna, coulda, shoulda stuff. It's over. Don't be worried if you find a typo. There are typos in books. Sort yourself out. The universe won't end, okay? But have a clean printout and bring that with you. Now, what I would also do, so you've got that. There's your thesis. Hasn't got nonsense and mess all over it. It is a thesis. Then what I would do, the other thing I would bring in with you, 5, probably no more than 5 index cards, like what I use for these, 5 index cards, right? Like that. Now, on each of these cards, write down very specific information. Now, you may not refer to or use these cards at all, but they are there to calm you in case you have a brain freeze. They're there to relax you. It's almost like insurance on a card, okay? So card 1, write, what is my original contribution to knowledge? Why does my research matter? What am I contributing to the field? So that's the why the thesis matters stuff on card 1. Card 2, make sure you've got your research questions clearly on a card. Research questions on a card. Card 3, strengths of the research. That's your spruik card. Card 3 is, why is this great? Why is this brilliant? What have I done well here? Come on. Card 4 is obviously the challenges in the research. The weaknesses, if you like. But let's say the challenges in the research and what went wrong and what you do differently. And remember, you're not writing this in prose. You've probably got 3 or 4 bullet points on each of these cards, and that's it. And card 5 is the future trajectories of this research, how this research will move. Now, this is very basic stuff. I know you're going, am I going into a thesis with this, with an unmarked thesis and 5 cards? Yeah, you are. The chances are you won't refer to them. But the idea is these cards have pretty basic stuff as a safety net. So if you freeze, you've at least got the basics here to be able to speak to the card until you can hook yourself back into the event. But also, the other thing I need to tell you is oral examinations can be long. As I said, most are about 90 minutes really, and they can easily go up to 2 hours. And what actually happens is, during those 90 minutes, 2 hours, you get tired. So that means what these cards also do is they provide a safety net for the final 30 minutes. It is amazing, as an examiner, students that can do 30 great minutes, you go, wow, this is all happening. And of course, by the final 30 minutes, they're exhausted. It's almost as if we're examining a different person, okay? So if you feel like your brain is sliding out of your ear during those final 30 minutes, at least you can recalibrate yourself a bit and refer to the cards if you need them. And that's it. So the whole point of only taking in the thesis and those cards is less is more. Allows you to be calm and be comfortable. You're not frantic, you haven't got stuff everywhere. So you're focusing on what is occurring in the present. Here's the document, here are the cards, that's your safety net. Now, let's get into the oral examination itself. Let's do this. Here it is. 5. Write down the questions. Now, I understand you are absolutely stressed in an oral examination. For a doctorate, it is almost, in fact it is, one of the most incredibly stressful events of your entire life. So don't pretend it's not. It is this significant, it is that important. But therefore, the best piece of advice to prepare you for an oral exam that I can ever give you is write down the questions that the examiners ask you. So when the examiner asks you a question, write it down. Now, by the way, I've trained thousands of people around the world on how to do an oral exam, and this one bit of advice has enabled thousands of people to relax, do well on the oral exam, and actually enjoy it. So if you do nothing else out of this gig today, get a question, write it down. And also, the key is don't be frightened by the silence that emerges when you write down that question. Write down the question and just relax with it. So this is important, because once you've written the question down, you can relax. You've got it. Asked a question, you've got it written down. You can read it, you can take a breath, you can have a think and formulate your answer. And then you can begin to speak. And one of the great things about writing down the question is, okay, you've got the question, you begin to speak, you give your first iteration of an answer, you're then able to look down and assess if what you've just said has answered that question, and you can go again or finish your answer because you've got it. So this will change your life. Go into an oral exam, write down the question, and it means then, like the cards in many ways, you've got insurance for every stage of the process. Nothing can really go wrong once you've written down the question. So write down the question. 6, crucial next stage. Don't be afraid of the silences. Okay. The nature of our daily conversations is that we all have a chat. And we don't like silences. So we fill in the silences. Oh no. Okay. So we listen, we talk, we endlessly fill in the gaps. The oral examination process as a professional communication system is completely different. Now, no examiner ever expects you to reply immediately. We expect you to get the question, write it down, take a breath, have a think, formulate your ideas, and begin to speak. It is a completely different communication system. So go in knowing that. There are going to be a lot of silences, and we're cool with that. We're cool. So write down the question, create some space for yourself, know there's going to be silences, and then after that first answer, look down at your question again, have another silence, have a think, have I answered it, go again, or thank them and ask the examiner for the next question. Okay, 7. And speaking of the next question, let's talk about the first question. 7. Prepare for the first question. You will always receive a handball first question. The examiner wants you to be comfortable. the examiner wants you to be warmed up into the space. So no, and of course if we're doing it via Skype or technology, we use the first question also to just make sure that all the technology is working well too. So let me know, I'll let you know what the first question can be. It can invariably be from a series of pretty straightforward ideas. So the first question, if they want to get you personally involved in this, they'll ask, what drew you to this research area? What drew you to this topic? The other one is always a nice one. What do you think you've achieved through this thesis? So we start the oral examination with an understanding of the end. What do you think you have achieved? Or how do you think your research in this thesis has enhanced or transformed a particular debate, a particular topic, a particular subject? Therefore, even though these may seem very easy questions, and they probably are, have a think, because you can prepare for them. You can prepare for this first question. And how you prepare for it is you think big. So what have I done in this thesis? Why does this thesis matter? What drew me to it? And what have I achieved? The first question will come from that cluster of ideas. So you can prepare that and know that'll be your first question. 8. Oh yeah. Acknowledge what went wrong. Acknowledge what went wrong. Now it's interesting, a lot of the advice books about an oral exam, they always say, don't admit weakness. And I'm not talking about admitting weakness, but the great thing about acknowledging the challenges, the stuff that went wrong, is stuff goes wrong in every research project. So examiners love it when a student is reflexive about the challenges and the issues and what went wrong and this experiment and then I did this and wow. Examiners love that stuff, absolutely love it. And the reason we love it is firstly, it shows research integrity. You did the work, you understood the weaknesses. But secondly, it shows you are a fine researcher because you are reflexive about the processes that you've gone through. So weaknesses and challenges and problems are a gift to examiners. And I can't tell you how often, thousands of times, that I've seen examiners, external examiners, including myself, right, the student handled the challenges in the research incredibly well and was reflexive about research design and reflexive about the research process. So acknowledging the challenges is not acknowledging weakness, it's acknowledging it's research, stuff went wrong, and this is how I handle it, and these are probably the consequences of the result, on the result. Brilliant. So don't be frightened of that. Examiners love it, and it shows you reflexive and responsive. 9. All crucial one, and this is about mindset. Live in the moment during your oral exam. 9. Live in the moment during your oral exam. Do not go into the oral examination thinking about the whole 90 minutes. Don't think about this is going to be the worst 90 minutes of my life. Now, for cricketing countries, and my apologies to all the baseballing nations out there, it doesn't work as well with baseball, but for cricketing countries, I think really the best metaphor to understand questions in an oral exam is really cricket. So, if you go into an innings thinking that you're going to score 100, I'm going out there, I'm going to score a ton, it's my day, going to do a ton, then you can bet your life you're going to get out on the first ball. Okay, you can't think big picture. But what you need to do in cricket is you need to play each ball on its own terms. Okay, so there is a bowler and the ball is coming towards you. Play that ball. Get into position. Move your feet. Get your wrist work right. Okay, you're playing that ball on its own terms, and it's identical to an oral examination. Think about one question at a time. This question is coming at you. This is the question. Don't think about 90 minutes. Look at this question, write it down, breath, think, answer that question, okay? Don't overthink what could happen. Don't think about the question that you wanted to be asked. Greatest problem in an oral exam. That's why I get you to write it down. Don't over predetermine, if you will, what is going to happen, what you're going to be asked, okay? You need to play the ball and answer the question as asked. So you are respecting your examiner and you're respecting each individual question. And speaking of respect, we finish with 10. Respect the process and enjoy it. The oral examination is a privileged space. Some of the greatest scholars in the world have read your research. It's probably taken them 50 plus hours to read your research. They've taken 5 hours to write up their report, 2 hours to prepare an oral exam. And remember, if they have to travel to that oral exam, they've taken time away from their family and their work to be with you. Now, I know it seems absolutely impossible that you could enjoy an oral exam. You know, it's a place of incredible fear because you only invariably do one in your career. So, of course, it's fear and paranoia and confusion. But it is amazing that when you talk to PhD students after the oral exam and you ask them invariably, how was it? How'd it go? How'd you feel? The results are extraordinary. The students invariably say, wow, I enjoyed it. Wow, it went so fast. I didn't expect to really like it, but wow, it was amazing. It's these sort of phrases like, wow, it was amazing. It went so fast. Incredible. What an experience. Amazing. So the reason that response occurs at the end is in life, you rarely have the opportunity to share your research. And colleagues who actively and enthusiastically are focused on you and interested in you and interested in your development. That's incredibly rare and it's incredibly precious. Now trust me, the rest of academic life is not like that. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity. So if possible, get yourself as relaxed as you can. Feel positive about the process. Great scholars are going to talk with me about my research. Amazing. And look, have a series of mantras or statements if it helps you. You know, stuff like, it is a privilege to share my research. I've done something that only 1% of the world's population has done. I deserve credit for that. This is an opportunity to discuss my research and wow, I have a chance to meet 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 of the greatest researchers in my field. Amazing. So the other thing I need to tell you is examiners can be useful for the rest of your career. Examiners of your doctorate can open doors for you for jobs and for publishing. So I know what seems an examination and it's frightening. It's not actually examination, it's not actually frightening. An oral exam is a door. It's a door that you open and you can walk through to your future. Therefore, get a good night's sleep, have yourself a good, big, posh cup of coffee. Tea don't count. Get yourself a posh cup of coffee and come to this moment in your life with your head up and proud of your research. Certainly this is a moment where you will be tested, but you are prepared. Know that the examiners have already read your thesis and they've come to the examination knowing that it's fine. Remember that most systems around the world do not allow a thesis to progress to oral examination unless all the examiners believe it will pass. We have a form that we have to sign and tick. Is this thesis ready to progress to oral exam? Yes. So the idea that you've got to an oral exam shows that the examiners like it. You're cool. So the goal then in the oral exam is to address those final queries, interesting ideas, quirky further trajectories for your research. And remember, they've almost overwhelmingly passed you before you enter the oral examination. This is your moment in the sun. This is your moment to share what you know. So what we've done in the vlog today is we've enacted pretty practical tasks. I wanted this to be practical, things you can do tomorrow. If your oral exam is tomorrow, do it tomorrow and you'll pass. So what I've tried to do is help you, prepare you mentally, physically, but also emotionally to create a culture of success for you in that oral exam. Now next week, the Dean of Graduate Research will be absent for 1 week, and she will be replaced by someone who strangely looks a lot like me, but will be your examiner. So I will conduct a mock examination with you. We will take this vlog as read, and I will start to introduce you to the banks of possible questions that you may be asked. So with enormous thanks to Eleanor and to Queen Cat for the suggestion, and the thousands of people around the world who have waited to vlog 277 for me to talk about the oral exam, I hope it was of use. So I wish you all love, light and peace. Tea out.